So an American YouTuber, Gonzalo Lira, has died, unfortunately, in Ukrainian custody. His father emailed a few of us last week to break the horrific news. His father has appeared on this show a couple of times and has pled for the U.S. government to intervene in some way and to help Gonzalo Lira get out of Ukrainian custody, but the American administration pretty much ignored it. Now, Gonzalo Lira was in custody because of speaking about the Ukraine war. He was against NATO. He was against U.S. involvement in the war. He took the stance that this very similar stance to myself, similar stance to, Scott Ritter's come on this show and says the same things. Many of us have had the exact same stance and have said the exact same things as Gonzalo Lira. And that is what's so absolutely frightening about this, is that he did no different than what I have done on this show night after night after night. That is what Gonzalo Lira did. And Ukraine made it illegal to say those types of things while on Ukrainian soil or anywhere. If I step foot in Ukraine, I would be potentially incarcerated. And they jailed him. They jailed him for speech, what we would call free speech in this country, our First Amendment right. They jailed Gonzalo Lira over that. Now, some people have a hard time believing this, and they think there is no way. He must have done something else. It is just beyond imagination for many people to believe that a country like Ukraine, many people supporting this country, would jail somebody over just telling things the way I tell on YouTube. He was a YouTuber. He made YouTube videos. And he said what he thought. And they jailed him for it. This is the email that I received from his father. A few of us received this. My son, Gonzalo Lira, died in a hospital in Kharkiv between 11 and 12 p.m. Ukraine time yesterday, January 11th, 2024. I cannot accept the way my son has died. He was tortured, extorted, incommunicado for 8 months and 11 days, and the U.S. Embassy did nothing to help my son. The responsibles of this tragedy is the dictator Zelensky, with the concurrence of a senile American president, Joe Biden. Please read his file enclosed from that kangaroo court hearing, and you will see that the charges were a political question, and Biden gave the green light to that bloody dictator to put my son in prison. My pain is unbearable. The world must know what is going on in Ukraine with that inhuman dictator Zelensky. If you believe in democracy and decency, make the world know what they have done to a decent and very intelligent man who predicted that Ukraine would never win a war against Russia and the financial punishments would backfire on the USA. Gonzalo Lira Sr. And that's all that Gonzalo Lira did, is he said, this is not a winnable war. Many of us said that, and guess what? It is not a winnable war. And now everyone's scrambling to try to figure out how they're going to end this war. How do they end this war and save face? And that's the type of stuff that Gonzalo Lira talked about on YouTube. He made YouTube videos. He was a YouTuber, and they jailed him, and now he's dead. Gonzalo Lira also sent us a photograph, an image of a handwritten note that Gonzalo Lira wrote, or he maybe had somebody at his bedside write. It's unclear, but this is a handwritten note. He says, tell my sister I have had double pneumonia as well as pneumothorax, plus a very severe case of edema, swelling of the body. All this started in mid-October, but was ignored by the prison. They only admitted that I had pneumonia at a December hearing. I'm about to have a procedure to reduce the edema pressure in my lungs, which is causing me extreme shortness of breath to the point of passing out after minimal activity or even just talking for 2 minutes. So he sent this email. This was a message that he'd sent January 4th, I believe, and then he was dead January 11th. So he suffered from pneumothorax, which is a collapsed lung. A collapsed lung can be a result from chest trauma. So it could have been beaten and ended up with a collapsed lung. It could also be some sort of excess pressure on the lungs, or it could be lung disease that causes it. COPD, asthma, cystic fibrosis, tuberculosis, whooping cough. There's various different things that could cause pneumothorax, the collapsed lung, but that is what he apparently died from, which is the pneumothorax and the edema pressure in his lungs, and it is just horrific. Um, he apparently had indicated to his family that he was, like he said in this note, that it started in mid-October. He was getting sick in mid-October, but they ignored him. They didn't get him, he was incarcerated. They didn't get him any medical care, any medical treatment. And they finally got him admitted to the hospital when he went to a hearing in December. So that was 6 weeks or more, 6 to 8 weeks later is when they finally, or longer than that even, before they finally got him hospital care. And when you wait that long with something like that, it is fatal. And it was fatal for Gonzalo Lira. This is just, I think, for many of us, or for me, at least I should say, Julian Assange, the case of Julian Assange is frightening and comes with some serious dire consequences for journalism. If they convict Julian Assange for publishing government secrets, then all of journalism will be corrupted and afraid to ever publish government secrets. The government would love nothing more than that. Now, that is an important case, and we followed that along, and we still are following that. And that hits home in a way, because as somebody who wants to talk about government secrets, I don't want to be punished the way Julian Assange is being punished if I publish, let's say, a video that contains government secrets. That's very scary, right? So that's an important case. But I will say that this Gonzalo Lira case hits closer to home. Because, when I look at Julian Assange, I think, what are the chances I'm ever going to come across government secrets? What are the chances someone's going to send me, little old Kim Iversen, government secrets to bring forward on my show? I mean, it could happen. I certainly welcome it if somebody has whatever that needs to get out there to the public, that's important to the public to know about. But the chances of it are low. When I look at Gonzalo Lira, I think, I do this every day. And now he's dead. He was incarcerated. They took him away for doing exactly the same thing I do, exactly the same thing that many of the others that you watch do. So it's incredibly, incredibly frightening. It hits way closer to home that being, a journalist, a YouTuber, a truth teller, an independent talker, however you want to label it, that this is a dangerous job. I mean, you wouldn't think it is. You wouldn't think it's a dangerous job. I certainly at times forget that it's a dangerous job. But I guess it's a dangerous job because people are out to get us. They don't want us to speak the truth. They don't want the masses to hear things. They don't want you to know the truth. That's really what it comes down to. It's not even about me. It's not about Gonzalo. It's not about Julian Assange. It's not about the individual. It's about you, actually. It's about you. They don't want you to know the truth. That's what it is. They're afraid of you. And because they're afraid of you, they have to silence us because they're worried about the weapon we give you, which is information, knowledge. And they know that weapon is more powerful than any other weapon that you could have. And that is why they don't want you to have it. And that's why they go around silencing and punishing, because they're wanting to scare us. They're wanting to ensure that we never cross the line and give you those weapons. The weapons that could take down an empire, the weapons that cause revolutions, the weapons that expose corruption and get people angry and cause people to rise up and change their governments, or even just vote differently. They just don't want you to have that information. So Gonzalo Lira, he predicted that he would die in prison. This was July 31st. He had gotten out. He was incarcerated. Then they let him out on bail, essentially. And while he was out, he decided, I've got to run. I have to run or I'm going to die in prison. That's just the way it's going to be. Watch this video. It's it's terrible.
The start of the genesis of this whole situation is because I had an opinion that went against the narrative. And that's why I went to prison. And that's why, if I'm arrested again, I will die in prison. So I ask you, please, as many people as possible, The American State Department knows exactly who I am and the situation I'm currently involved in. And they know the fate that awaits me. They know it. You know, they have that saying that, I forget the wording exactly. You know, I'm a little stressed out, as you can imagine. But they have that saying that people are fundamentally good, but for evil to triumph, all you need is the indifference of good people. Please don't be indifferent to my fate. I ask you this very humbly. Please recognize that, well, the literal death that awaits me if this doesn't work out. Understand what's going on.
Well, he wasn't being melodramatic there. He was being serious, and he did die in incarceration by Ukraine. I want to fast forward to just a day after that. Ukraine had a spokesperson, Sarah Ashton Carrillo, if you remember. This person was basically gloating that they were going to hunt Gonzalo Lira down and capture him. Watch this.
Gonzalo Lira made the mistake of admitting that he thought about running away to the so-called Donetsk People's Republic or Luhansk People's Republic, as well as running towards Russia. Gonzalo Lira also claims he wants political asylum. An innocent man would stand and face trial. Gonzalo Lira is not an innocent man. Gonzalo Lira is a criminal propagandist. Gonzalo Lira is not a journalist. But most importantly, after his admissions to having a desire to run towards Russia, to run towards the so-called Donetsk People's Republic and so-called Luhansk People's Republic, he then went west. But there's a reason you haven't heard from Gonzalo Lira yet with his so-called attempts at asylum in Hungary. It's because the state security services, better known as the SBU, are some of the most talented and focused law enforcement agents across the globe. And in doing so, they knew where Gonzalo Lira was, most certainly, every step of the way with his movements over the past 48 hours.
I mean, just disgusting. So they hunted him down. She's gloating about, he's looking for asylum in these other countries. He had every reason to look for asylum in those countries. Look what happened to him. And she says that, or he says, I don't know how they identify these days, or if it matters. He, I suppose, says that that Gonzalo Lira, an innocent person, an innocent man would stand trial and would allow themselves to be detained. Well, Gonzalo Lira never got his day in court. So he died before he could get there, and he knew that that's what would happen to him. He knew that they would beat him, they would torture him, that they would somehow off him and ensure that he just didn't get his day in court, and he didn't get his day in court. So it's not just about, I'm going to be tough, I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to stand my day in court. I'm going to go back and do that, and have my day. I mean, that you can't have your day if they don't let you have it. And that's what happened to Gonzalo Lira. I do want to point out that the Biden administration did absolutely nothing about this, continues to stay mum about Gonzalo Lira's death, even though now it is making some mainstream media news. I did see Newsweek put out a piece, Fox News has put out a piece. There's been some outlets that have been reporting on his death. But I do want to roll back the clock here to May 28th, when the U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller was asked about Gonzalo Lira, and this is what he said.
Thanks, Liam Cosgrove with Epic Times. So this was a couple weeks ago, but I haven't seen an official statement on it. A U.S. citizen who was residing in Ukraine has been arrested, and that he was a California-born man. He was in the past like a Business Insider contributor, and he had a YouTube channel. He was an outspoken critic of Zelensky's regime. The Ukrainian SBU released a press release saying he was arrested for justifying Putin's invasion. So ultimately, it added up to speech. And I spoke with Congressman Ted Lieu, Democrat, and he said he urges the State Department to engage its authorities to, work out some sort of negotiation to get him released. So are you guys aware of this? How do we feel about our allies, detaining U.S. citizens for speech abroad?
I will say in general that we're aware of the report. We obviously support the exercise of freedom of speech anywhere in the world, and I'll leave it at that.
So you guys aren't working to get him released?
I'm going to leave my comments where I just left them. Kylie.
Shameful, completely shameful. An American citizen detained for free speech dies in custody for free speech, over free speech. That's what he did wrong. He spoke. And now Gonzalo Lira is dead.